Right. So, hi, and welcome to Courageous Conversations. My name is Tasha, and tonight we are joined by Phynyx. Phynyx is a long time friend of mine. She is very near and dear to my heart and to my journey on this earth. She is someone who gave me the courage to even step into where I am right now with my yoga, life coaching, just seeing her step into that side of herself, entrepreneurism and all of that just inspired me. And she truly, whether she knows it or not, just gave me that little nudge that I needed to believe in myself and to believe that I could do it. She always said from Barbies to business, because we played Barbies in my parents' backyard. And she's the first one that introduced me to what the business life could look like. So, my beautiful friend,
Thank you,
welcome.
Tasha. Thank you. Thank you. I am like, wow, what a very warm welcome. But yeah, absolutely. From Barbies to business. I mean, we play Barbies all day, every day, hours, building their house out of boxes, everything. And we were serious, and dance routines,
Everything.
Kwame, like all of it. Yes. So thank
Oh,
you
Kwame,
very
not the polka
much.
dots.
Yes, yes. But thank you. I appreciate your words, and I think ultimately that's kind of why I'm here to just remind people, you could do it, and I think that comes from having to prove that to myself over and over and over and over and over and over, right? And that's where Phoenix comes. I had to embrace the fall, you know,
Yeah, I
and
listen.
trust in the rise of the ashes. Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, most people know me by Rochelle. We were first introduced to Shelly, for those a little bit closer to me. But yeah, Phoenix feels a bit more universal in terms of what I think I'm here to help people with or do in my life. I also learned I'm mostly here to evolve, right? I thought I was here to just help everybody, and I am, but our role here is to evolve, and that came through a lot of heartbreak, like the topic.
Well, I am so honored to have you here. And our topic tonight is heartbreak. So this should be a very interesting 30 to 45 minutes. So my first question is, how would you define heartbreak?
Grief, grief and loss, heartbreak. I think when I look at it through the lens of grief and loss, it's a lot of symbolic loss. Some of us have endured physical loss of a person, but not everybody. And with that being said, we've all experienced symbolic losses, and that's even tougher, I think, because those are parts of life that we're just expected to endure, right? Loss of a job, loss of a friend, loss of a marriage, a limb, right? Or sometimes even if it's a physical loss, people are like, oh, well, they were sick or they had a good life, or we're already met with the reason to just put it away, right? So yeah, we have a huge storage if we think about how big the container of a heart is, right? The heart space. And ultimately, my belief system is it's our lens. So depending on what we're filtering through, that's what we're gonna see in ourselves, other people in the world. And so looking at it through the lens of heartbreak to me is looking at it through the lens of loss.
I love that. I love that. Especially the part where you say our hearts are our lens, right? And I don't think, well, I know that this is not taught, right? You have to
Right.
pretty much go on a journey to find this information. This is not something we are taught, at least for me. I'm only speaking from me and my experience.
And myself.
I was never taught that, right? However, because it all ties into the feelings, our perspective. A lot of the things that we're experiencing is tied to our emotions. And if we have suppressed emotions like grief, sadness, loss, if you're swallowing that down and not allowing it to allowing it to live, like you said, we're not allowing it to live out and to leave. So it's buried in there. And if that's the lens that you're looking at the world through,
Mhm.
then that's what you're calling in. That's going to be your experience. That's going to be, I mean, maybe you can give me some better words because people really need to understand that. Like whatever this heart thing is, that's our
But
guidance, almost like our
absolutely,
guidance
it's and I
system.
think it's So let me break it down a little bit. So from
Yeah,
my perspective and looking at it through the lens and understanding that it's grief and loss, when I think of heartbreak, let's look at grief and the stages of grief: anger, denial, bargaining, right? We got a whole way to go before we finally get to acceptance, right? And so if we've got all that up in here, grief, and this is our lens and this is what we're rolling with, then we're rolling with denial and anger and bargaining, and we're rolling with all that. And the last place we can get to is acceptance, right?
absolutely.
Okay, because with that comes the judgment, the shame, the blame. Oh, I forgot to say guilt. That's a big one, right? That's a big one in terms of grief. It doesn't matter what the loss is, we're automatically feeling bad, right? We had nothing to do with it. If it's a physical loss, it's very common, right? I should have reached
Yeah,
out more. But guess what? You don't reach out to the next one any more than the last one. So it's like, learn how to deal with that, right?
yeah.
And I don't mean to sound callous. I'm just saying this is what gets in the way, you know, because it's
No, I
hard.
understand what you're saying. I
And
understand.
personally, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but I will speak for us all when I say it all comes from how we were taught to handle loss in the beginning. So some of us weren't
Mm,
even allowed to say it was an L, right?
mm,
And I'll just raise my hand on that one
me
because
too.
those of you who know my father, like you, right, Tosh,
Yeah.
my man was always reminding me there wasn't anything out here tougher than you, and you need to remember that. He was also a man that I saw didn't even cry at his mother's funeral, so I don't want
Mm,
that part of being strong, right?
yeah.
It's wild.
And let's
So
break down loss because I think when people hear the word loss, they are usually thinking of the physical loss or, like you said, loss of a limb. So they're like, but I didn't lose. Why? I didn't experience that, or I had very little loss or grief. So maybe dive a little bit into
mhm.
common everyday examples of
Common
loss.
everyday examples of loss. I mean,
Yes.
I feel like there's internal losses, you know, the little things that we all are aspiring to do or to be that we don't really take any risk at even trying. So there's a loss, right? And that's internal. We haven't even talked to anybody yet, right? And then there's the, like I said, loss of, well, if we're looking at a child, right? A young child and someone, a parent trying to come to terms that they have specialized needs for their child, you know, to be met, for an example. There's a loss because now they're grieving prom or whatever, right? They've already had this life lined out, you know, for their kid. So there's a loss of you, an athlete, right? You were going to make the championship, but you didn't, or the loss of you almost got that scholarship, or the loss of whatever sentimental item that you received from someone that was, you know, you favored, you know, loss of a friend, loss of family. And I mean, well, because I know someone out there's watching this, having to walk away from family was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do. And most of them are still alive, you know, but
It's a
that's
big
what I
one.
had to do for me, right? So loss of identity, Tosh, right? You
Mm.
become someone's mother, right?
Mhm.
There's loss of identity, you know, or
Wife.
wife. I was gonna say wife, or maybe the space in your I mean not the space, your birth order, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's all kind of loss of childhood because maybe your birth order had you, you know, responsible for those younger children, right? There's all kinds of different little things, you know,
Loss of your voice.
loss of your
That
voice.
was a huge one for me. I didn't realize that I'd lost my true
Mm,
voice, the voice that expressed the things that were really on my mind and my heart. For so long, I didn't think that it was okay to speak my truth. I didn't think it was okay to say, I don't like that. I didn't think it was okay to say, F you, like, just
right. You didn't
get
know it was
away
okay
from
to
me.
say no,
I don't
right?
want to be around you. Or
Mhm.
even, I love you so much and I don't know how to do this. So please be patient with me.
Right.
Not even knowing how to do that, or I need help.
That one for me.
That was a big
Yep.
loss
That
and
one for me.
caused me to grieve longer than I understood that I didn't even understand that I was grieving that.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. And
to
I
sum up
appreciate
what
that.
we just talked about, to give it in terms that everybody can understand, and this is what I received listening to you dive into that. And I just wrote it down because I love to write what's coming through, right? And if
Mhm.
I had to define heartbreak so far from what we were talking about, it is losing something that you loved, wanted, or needed.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's
Mhm.
what it, you know?
Yeah, beautiful. That's exactly what it breaks down to because everything else is person, places, or things, you know? So essentially, that to me captures heartbreak, loss, through the lens of loss, right? Because aside from that, we're talking people and places and things. And so when we're talking about even trauma, the reason why we can be sort of re-victimized unintentionally is because reminders, people, places, and things. So we're always dealing with loss. And again, if we've learned to suppress it, that's what we continue to do. And again, you're talking about losing the voice. And I think that's something, again, I'm not coming for anyone's parents, just saying that's where we learn to regulate, I guess, our voice, you know, and whether or not we feel safe enough to use it.
So something I've been experiencing, and because I have two little ones
Mhm.
who are allowed
Yes,
to use their voice and to vocalize what it is that they are feeling no matter what.
yes.
And I tried to make sure that I'm not teaching that from a lack place, even
Hmm.
though it's coming from not being able to do that as a child. I try to make sure that I'm teaching them to use it in a healthy way and whatever that looks like for me, right?
Right.
So I agree. I agree that we grew up in an era that our families and our parents were transferring over. Children are to be seen, not heard. Stay in a child's place.
Hmm.
Don't talk to me like that. Don't ask too many questions because even that could be,
Correct.
overwhelming, or they just can't handle it. And I think that's where it stems from. And I don't think, and I know that it's not malicious because I can speak from
No,
my own experience. It is
correct.
never malicious.
Yes, and I think ultimately there is something to be said about how we govern as parents. It's in a sense of fear. We are trying to protect our children
Yes.
from things, and however we decide to show up is however that is applied, I guess, right? Because how we show up is sometimes not intended, to your point, right? And therefore not malicious. Um, but yes, it comes from a place of fear and not knowing whether or not you can use your voice. And the voice is so powerful. If you think about how powerful the voice is, even not using the voice is a statement, selective mutism, for an example, right? So there's a lot of things. And I think to not get off topic, I'll leave that there, but through that journey, we do lose a piece of our power, and I mean that journey of growing up, right? And those pieces of us that sort of separated themselves because they're like, okay, well, she ain't gonna say it anyway, so I'm gonna just, right? And so we have to be like, no, 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 I got you this time, and ultimately reminding ourselves we are in a place of power, you know, but that looks different to different people. And again, I don't want to get off subject, but
Yes,
yeah,
this is not
I,
you, and I don't think you're getting off subject. This is how me and you would converse if we were sitting
anyway,
across from each other. This is how we talk. And that's what
right.
courageous conversations is to me. It is being ourselves and going
Mm,
as deep or as shallow as we choose to go. And if that's where the conversation is going, then that's where it's going to go because it all ties together. Me
it
losing my
does.
voice caused me to experience constant heartbreak. And at first, when I'm young, that heartbreak felt like it was this external thing that was happening to me. But as I've gone on my journey, I've realized that the person that hurt me the most was myself.
Yes,
Once
it's very
I
interesting.
once I understood that not using my voice, not walking in my value, and seeing how worthy I was to receive all the good stuff, not just the bad stuff, but all the good stuff, is the day I started mending my own broken heart.
Yes, and I think that that's hard for people around us. One, I think if they care about us, it's hard to see, especially if we don't realize it yet. you know, um, it's extra fun when they realize it and you don't. You're like, I'm not ready for that conversation yet.
Right. Whoa.
But the reality is, I think we all go through some sort of evolution of journey. Those of us on it. I don't want to imply it's a way to do anything, but it's just that self actualization, that point where you're like, whoa, I'm driving a boat. Oh, snap!
It's a
Like it's me,
game changer.
right? It's me. And then you make these decisions about how you're going to go about that, and for most, no matter how you do that, that journey into self is private. It's I don't want to say it's lonely, but there's no one else to be a part of that, right? So you are going about it alone, and I
Yes,
think sometimes that takes people off course because they don't want to be alone. And again, the people around us might get a little like confused because they don't understand, and
absolutely.
depending what they're working with, maybe they internalize it as they did something wrong or whatever. The point is that commitment, to heal and to figure some of this stuff out. Not only is it hard, not only is it isolating, low key, but you find yourself to you. You find yourself to you, and it's just like, wow, this whole time, because we've been taught external, right?
Yes,
So we've taught to tap dance for external purposes, things that allow us to check
absolutely.
off a box, and so deciding to leave the state, deciding to leave the hospital, deciding to go into business on my own to do what I love, right? This all came with a lot of opinion, of others, right? And so being committed to my journey and my work allowed me to see this through, right? So that is not easy because it takes a lot of inside work. It's easy to turn off somebody's opinion. It can be easy, right? But to do the work, to prepare yourself to receive what it is that you said that you're working towards, your voice, right? So tell me, how was that finding that journey back to your voice, right?
Painful. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. And it wasn't just this, pain for me meant literal pain. I remember my throat actually
Mm,
hurting. I remember my chest hurting. And I remember the more I got into, and I still have residual. It's not like it's all gone. It's a
right.
process. I will probably deal with this for the remainder of my
Yep.
life, right?
Yep.
But the pain that I used to feel in my chest when I was hurt or not heard, or in my throat when I was hurt or not heard, or not expressing out that I was hurt or not being heard,
That part.
it used to double me over. It was that painful. I would think something was wrong with me because I'm like, my chest hurt
Mm-hmm.
so bad, my throat hurt so bad. But the more I practiced
Mm-hmm.
saying what I think, saying how I feel, saying what
Right.
I want, that was a big one for me. I want something because
Yeah.
I am a giver. I will give, 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 give. I don't need anything back. Oh, it's just what I do. And that
Believe in the
that was another
energy.
heartbreak. Don't even get me started. That's
Believe
a
in the
whole
energy. All kinds of imbalance. Yes.
oh, exactly. It's so much,
Energetically
but
looking like you need a V8, right? Like,
yes. And I don't want people I don't always like saying how hard it was or painful it was because I feel like if people get afraid, they're like, why would I willingly sign up for that? But the process of easing, that's what I would call it. It was a process of easing for me.
mm-hmm.
So every day the pain became a little less. And in a month, it was noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
In 3 months, it was whoa.
Right.
In 10 months, I was like, wow. And knowing I don't ever have to go back to that because now I am in charge. That's the taking
Right.
back your power. I am a grown up. I am an
Yes.
adult. And you can be a child and be like this because my kids are like this. So I'm not saying it's because they are like this now. They say it, they express it, they feel it. And I sometimes it is annoying. Let me be real. Some days I have to go and pray
Mm-hmm.
and breathe because I
Yep.
want to say, if you don't shut the
Yes. Understood.
right,
This idea
but
of
that's my trauma.
differentiating.
That's
Yes.
my issue.
Yes. No, I understand. And I think it's something like I just want to piggyback first on everything, right? But I want to reference in particular the part of, geez, there's so many parts I want to join on, but what you talked about was the residual effects, okay? And the need, the probable need to do this for the rest of your life. And I think if people understood that, if facing themselves, they could understand in which ways they get in their own way, in which ways that they can maybe find some harmony, some balance, some peace within their own lives. Because if instead of looking over here thinking it's this person because you understand it's you in front of you, that's a lot easier to navigate because you can't control anyone else. And if we look at the way we all love to escape, it can be very challenging for us to control ourselves, correct? Yes. So it's about practicing, right? And so we're talking about impulse control right there, Miss Manzi, right? You were able to like, hey, I need to,
Ooh,
right? But the
I need
awareness,
5 minutes.
yes, the awareness, the ability to come back and say, I'm sorry, or I was wrong, or let's try this again, or let's work together, or like you said, ouch, or I want or I need, right? These are hard things to practice because again, they come from a place that let's just put it like this, because I don't want to demonize healing. I also don't want to demonize
Mhm.
our childhoods growing up either. We can all do that on our
Absolutely.
own, right? But it comes from a place. And so I just say that we have a lot of practice doing it the other way. That's all. And cognitive dissonance is a thing. People don't want to hear that maybe what they believe in isn't true. And that's okay. I'm not here to tell anyone anything about what they believe in. But I want to bring it back to the point. When you do this journey of your own, you're trying to see what you believe in you
Mhm.
know and so it's hard, and so no, we're hedonists by nature. We would not sign up for pain, but we also don't sign up for pain in the choices of food we eat or people we keep around us or
Okay.
dreams or come on, right? So
Yeah.
it's more of a balance, and when we're talking about the balance in terms of the healing process, it's hard to maintain a balance, right? But
Yes.
it's start measuring different things and try to balance that. But it's different for everybody, and I know that it's been different for you. It's been different for me, right? Even though we're
Absolutely.
talking the same stuff, and it's been different for you since you started, just as it's been different for me as I've started. So it's always going to change. So I think facing that fear of it's me is what ultimately keeps people, you know, looking the other
Yeah.
way.
The word is accountability. That's the big word is accountability. And as a child, we cannot take accountability, right? Or it's harder because we are under someone else's rule, control. I don't even want to use those words, but we have
I was gonna say
parents. They are
regime.
doing their best. They are guiding us in the way that they think is correct. And we are grateful and we will always show them gratitude for showing up and doing their best. They didn't leave us, right? They did their best.
They did their best.
But then there's a point where you have to say, now I'm in charge.
Correct.
I am accountable.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that this is easy. This happens later. This happens on your somewhere in your healing journey, right? You have to start saying, you know what? I don't I don't want my heart broken anymore. I don't want to be sad anymore. I don't want to experience these emotions of grief and
Mhm.
guilt and shame. Like I am tired. I am tired of doing that. And that is the moment where you start saying, well, you know what? If I don't, maybe I could do something different. That's when you start going down your healing journey and you start looking for other resources, or you go to therapy, or you get a life coach, or whatever it is that you're going to go do. You sit by yourself in the woods for 5 months. I don't know, whatever it is for you, right? But
Right.
that is when we can start to take accountability. And that's when things start to shift, right? And start moving
Yes.
in that beautiful direction.
Yes. And it's challenging, period, because any new change is challenging. And so it's one of those things, like kind of high risk, high reward, like it's
Yes.
again back to even where I
Yes.
came up with the idea of Phoenix. It wasn't just like embrace the fall. I was good at falling, because I knew I would get
Mm.
up. But then life
Oh,
got
say it
different.
again. Wait, say that. Don't
Which
skip
piece?
that. Because people
I
need
got
to
used
hear
to
that, especially the
what part?
people labeling themselves as strong. And say it
You
again.
can't, you know what? This is true conversation. Conversation literally just happened today with a little, well, she's a young lady, gonna be 17 in 27 days, with respect. But I told her, she's like, I'm just trying to be strong. And I'm like, darling, that's not what this is about, right? Your strength has been tested already in the past. That's how you determine strength. Not that I'm here to qualify it, but you can't, we're not trying to be anything. You're already that. And you have demonstrated that through the getting up of your fall, right?
Mm.
So because I'm like a bull in a china shop, I'm okay with all of that, right? But the part where I ultimately understood was I had to learn trust, right? Because there
Mm.
came a certain point in my life, Tasha, where I made it, right? And then it came
Yeah.
that hard crash. And it's not that I hadn't made it, it's just I had a hard crash as though life is supposed to
Yeah.
happen because I made it. And I mean those check boxes, right?
I know what you mean. I know
Got my
exactly. You don't.
career, got me this, got
Hmm.
me that. Oh shit, there's my mom, dad, and I don't mean to be like,
Mm.
but I'm just
I know.
saying, just things happen, right? So again, to get back on the fact of the ideas learning to surrender, that was mine. You learned, I guess, grief, right? And sort of the
Yeah.
sadness there. And I learned surrender because
Me too.
I know to fight, right? But
Me
to
too.
surrender to ourselves is to say, guess what? This accountability thing. Sometimes it's us, and it's us in the sense that we're showing up with our trauma responses. We all are, right? And so if our trauma response is to be a people pleaser, well, guess what
Mm.
we're doing to ourselves? We ain't pleasing ourselves. So we're running around with
Other people.
a lot of energy, right? And then so when you decide, hey, let me stop doing this, then you learn that you stop doing this, that, and that, and then you start to see how people were sort of dependent on that behavior
Yeah. And because that behavior's not there, they may not want to be around you anymore. They don't find you as entertaining or
or
just
whatever,
desirable to be around, whatever it is for them.
whatever it may
Right.
be, right? Because you ultimately have to come to that point where whatever it is for them, it is for them,
Absolutely.
you know? And then leave that
I
there
love
and
this.
figure out what is this for you because that's what matters. That's what matters. And I don't mean it in a selfish way, but I do mean it in like an empowering, claiming victory and
Yes.
different kind of way because you have to earn it. It's not about being strong. You could be strong. You could be strong and not do a damn thing. You could be strong as
Hmm.
anything and watch someone get hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I have to piggyback, and I know we're getting into it because this is what we do naturally, right? So if
Right.
we're gonna get into it, let's get into it. But and I'm gonna bring it back to me because that's the only person that I can really speak about, right? I am me. I live as me. I breathe as me. I feel as me. So when I
Mm-hmm.
give information out, I always bring it back to me because that's the purest form that I could give it to you in. But like so many women, and maybe some men too, but I'm only speaking
Mm-hmm.
as a woman because I'm a woman.
Correct.
People pleasing is up there on our list of things that we need to stop doing in
Mm-hmm.
order to unbreak our hearts or to heal ourselves. This is just from my experience. People pleasing was me, and it looks like many different things. For me, it was not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings. For me, it was wanting people to feel good about themselves, even if that meant that I had to swallow my truth
Mm-hmm.
or my desires and my wants and my needs so that they could feel good. I would always have this empathy for people. And now I look at it and realize it may not have been as empathetic as I thought, right? So the need for me to feel good about being me came in helping other people. So it was like it fed me too.
Correct.
So I could feel good enough. So I could feel worthy enough. So I could
Mm-hmm.
feel enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would put myself in situations where I could help people. And I
Correct.
don't mean in my, and I don't even mean in my job because by nature, I just, that's who I am. If I love to be in service, I love to give, I love all of that. That will drive me forever,
Yes.
but
Yes.
not at the cost of me,
Correct.
but
Correct.
never again at the cost of my silence,
Correct. Correct.
my expression, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
experiencing love the way that I know it could be now only because I love myself like that.
Correct. It's so different. It's so different. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it is so the message because I think in working with people, I'm not a people pleaser. I'm not okay. So let's look at what it's called fawn response. People know fight, flight, freeze, but what about fawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just
Mm-hmm.
because what we're not understanding while we're helping people.
Wait, Shelly, what do they do? What is fawn? Show me fawn one more time.
No, no. It, I don't know. It drives me crazy because what so I want to describe what it might look like,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
people who think that they don't, right? Because all we're talking about is a survival tactic, and there's nothing cute
absolutely.
about it, and that's why it's draining. Because see, we
Mm,
know we're under duress, and so our brain is sending us the appropriate chemicals to support that. So now we are.
absolutely.
Right? Okay, so it is,
Absolutely.
hey, something is off in the room and it's you. Well, let me soothe that because if you're soothed, then I'm
Mm,
soothed. Now I could go back to being me. So it's not always empathy. It just happens to be something a lot of empaths deal with. And it's because
absolutely.
of the lack of boundary until you learn to develop, because it does feel good to see others be helped and to succeed. At least it does for me, and I know it does for you, and I know it does for Nilsa and Maria too. But the thing is, what I'm saying is we can get caught up in that, right? In those acts
Yeah.
of service. And so let's keep it a buck. So there was a friendship that didn't end up being as tight because I just decided to just even it out a little bit because I needed to, right?
Mhm.
And it was that's just what it turned into. It was like, oh shit. So I was feeding that relationship, right? Now this is a
Yeah.
long time ago. So this is, not recent past, but still my point is I was like, oh. So I was learning this people pleasing thing about myself a long time ago. I just didn't know what it was called or why I was doing it or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I also raised myself not knowing that I was people pleasing to survive, you know? And if I'm going
Or
to
to
keep it,
keep the peace,
but that's the part to keep the peace is to disrupt
to
your own.
keep the peace. That I don't think people see that as people pleasing all the time, though. I
Avoiding
think,
conflict,
yes,
avoiding
to keep
conflict.
the peace, you just want the environment to be okay.
And this comes from
And in
being
doing
younger.
so, you are disturbing yourself. And you guys may be asking, what does this have to do with heartbreak? Right? Because I want to make sure that you understand how this can keep going this deep with something that we just described as heartbreak, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are not operating in your truest, most authentic self, and what I mean by that is I can speak my truth, I can
Mm-hmm.
express how I feel, I can look at a situation and take accountability for my part in the situation, and then communicate that I understand that I may have done this. This is what I'm experiencing that you may have done, and have a conversation about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I can't show up and do those basic things, and now I add on top that I'm a people pleaser, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking through this earth every day, breaking my own heart because I'm not being me.
Right.
I'm not allowing myself to express myself the way
Right.
that I want to. Life is expression. So if you
Right.
can't express and you're constantly tight, constantly holding it in, that's the pain in the chest.
That's
That's
exactly
the
what I was
lump
gonna
in the
say.
throat.
Yeah.
That's
Those are the
that's you
somatic
going against
symptoms.
yourself. That's you breaking
Yes.
your own heart when you have the
Yes.
power to say no more. I'm going to speak even when it hurts. That
Yep.
was a big one for me. I'm going to speak even when it hurts. I'm going to
Yes.
say what's in my heart even when it's aching and all I want to do is hide or
Mm-hmm.
cry or keep the peace. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to be brave enough to
Mm-hmm.
express it and to just be me.
That's harder than people think, you know, and there are plenty of times where we have to monitor our voice, our truth, right? And right now is one of them. Anyone close enough to me knows I don't swear a lot, but I swear casually, right? But I have the ability to monitor because that's what I have to learn. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do about, nothing to do with, I should say, swearing or not, but with the forced, sort of the critical need and skill to be able to speak or not speak. So when I talk about selective mutism, that was me at
Mm,
3, almost
I
4.
understand. Wow. That's
So
big.
I've learned to fluctuate this muscle, but mostly not work it, right? And so it being not work kind of rigid in its application. So it's either silent or rough, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trying to even navigate that, being passive aggressive with everything, right? Trying to learn
Mm,
that balance,
mm.
you
That's
know?
a
And
big
so
one.
it's
That's a
huge.
sign. Oh my gosh.
It's huge. So there's so many layers. So sometimes not being able to speak my truth, knowing I really, really want to or need to. And I'll give an example because if it means that someone else is going to get harmed,
Absolutely.
right? Not the person, but the person says, hey, don't because this is going to come back to me worse, right? So those, we always have to fluctuate through that. It's, you know,
Yeah.
again, our hearts break every darn day.
Oh, so I want to bring this to relationships a little bit because I have a feeling when people hear the word heartbreak, the first thing they think about is a relationship, especially
Yes.
adults, right?
Yeah.
We took it to the childhood heartbreak, the not we took it all the way there, right? And I'm going to bring it back to heartbreak in relationships and
Okay.
being candid. I know quite a bit about that, right? I had two long-term relationships that did not, you know, come into the fruition that I thought they were going to. And during those times, I would look at the situation and think that they were doing something to me.
Mm,
I always thought they were doing something to me, but I also was wise enough to accept that I was also playing a part in it. I didn't know what part,
right,
but I
okay.
knew.
Mm-hmm.
Just from who I am, I knew that I was doing something, but I could not tell you what that was at the time. And I said earlier that the biggest heartbreak I've ever had was from myself, right? And the day I came to realize that the partners that I was picking was so I could play out my heartbreak. My heart was already broken. And I
Mm-hmm.
picked them because I knew subconsciously or somewhere in me that I'd be able to play out maybe the things I didn't say when I was a child, or maybe I was playing out the romanticism or the storyline I had in my head. But at the end of the day, I picked people. I'm not even gonna go into attraction and why I picked those people, but I was picking people that were gonna make me feel, and at the end of the day, how I already feel about myself.
Those agreements that you made a long time ago.
What?
I mean,
Yeah.
right? Because we make them early on. We get this message from somebody, we agree with it somewhere, and then we just continue. And this is, again, I think what I want to remind folks is that a lot of people don't want to talk about the past. I just want to talk about right now, and that's cool. So I'm only experiencing heartbreak right now as an adult. Cool. They can't necessarily see that they've experienced heartbreak their whole life, and that's cool as well. But it's the same heartbreak because it goes back to those same agreements, right? That we made somewhere throughout our journey, believing someone else's truths, right? And that's how we start learning to break our hearts, I guess. But I think that as adults, I think what gets, I don't know what gets in the way, not that. I think what adds to the fun is we've decided that this is what it's going to be. This is how our life is going to go. Identity is involved in that. This is going to be my person, especially when we have children involved. And it's
Yeah, I do.
so this is just what we think, and so we are going through heartbreak. But when we do the math and go back, we're like, oh, okay, I get it. But how long does it take? Right? Very subjective. But whenever we reach that
Absolutely.
point, we've already decided it took us too long. And then we're
Yeah,
heartbreak again. Right? Now we're mad at ourselves. I didn't get it. Why I couldn't do it before. And it's because it went exactly how it's supposed to, like you said,
absolutely.
you know? And the same to be said for mine as well, and I think you come from your parents still, very strong union connection, right? Stayed together forever, right? My
Yeah.
parents didn't stay together as long, but I always saw them together as a unit. So then we have these
Yeah.
values that we bring
Oh,
in.
that's a whole nother
That
whoa. We can go on. But that's that is that is it.
that's it right there. We're already like
We
eyelashes singed by the heat on
listen.
that one.
Listen, we can go deeper. We really could, but I really want people to understand. And Shelley said it best. Heartbreak happens every day, right? And for me, like I said, heartbreak is some kind of loss or loss of something you want or you needed or you desired, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the I'm trying to give them not the solution, but the antidote. The antidote. Because you don't stay in heartbreak. You don't live the heartbreak out all day, right? You can now start to say, oh, that's where that's coming from. And then you can choose to do something different,
Different.
right? So that's because I don't want to leave people with
Just
part of the truth because there's more to it. Like
absolutely.
I'm as
And it
happy as I've ever been, and I still experience my heartbreak every day. But
absolutely.
now I know what it is, so I can do some work or do some healing in that
Well,
area.
listen, the way to feel that absolutely through that, but the reality is it's not the reality is I go to counter you. What I want to say is our bodies are so in tune. So the idea of feeling it in
Mm,
your chest and your throat, I think I would ask people to visit their bodies,
mm,
and spend some time there to see what they feel like, minus the rest, and spending more time with yourself. You can kind of see. It's like when you're trying to figure out what kind of food you're allergic to, right?
yeah.
Or you sort of like slowly take things away or slowly introduce things back in, however that works. I don't know. I didn't go to school for that.
Mm.
but my
But you're
point,
saying,
but
listen,
my
I've heard
point
enough to
is
know that what you're saying is correct.
right. So my point is, spending that time with himself. I don't even care to put the word healing on it because
Mm,
some people aren't into healing and therapy, but everyone's got a body and everyone's body is telling them something,
yeah.
you know. kind of quickly learning about menopause, I learned that as women, we're never supposed to experience menstrual pain, bloating,
Oh yeah.
anxiety, or rage. Those are all deficiencies,
Oh
right?
yeah. Mineral
So
deficiencies, our diet, like
thank
all of
you.
that. Right.
But our body, we ignore that. We were trained to ignore that. We have a medication for it, and we, oh,
Right.
this is just life. And girl, my period, and this is what it turns into, that taking away from ourselves. So again, I would ask as an antidote is to kind of sit down with self, even maybe identifying what are the ways in which you feel like you need to be protected, right? And how can you manage that protection, or what are your resources? Because the point is the antidote is us. Returning to yourself is going to be the answer.
Yes.
But again, as long as we're talking about that sounds too hard or too okay, that doesn't mean it's not the answer. It just means no for you for right now or
Right
whatever.
now. Right.
You
Right.
know,
But that is the antidote. I love it. I love that it came right back into exactly what we started talking about because it's the truth. The antidote is you sitting
it
down with
starts and
you,
ends. It starts and
with
ends with
you.
us. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We can't make it simpler because I always try to give it in terms that everyone can understand. And
Yeah.
the term that everybody needs to understand what we're saying right now is every heartbreak that you're experiencing in life right now, you are the antidote. And
Mm-hmm.
the more you get involved with what you feel, how you think, and really start paying attention to that and understanding that,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you alleviate heartbreak. That's how you move in the direction that allows you to just live freely. And not freely, I mean freely. I don't know how else to say it.
That's I don't
The
either.
antidote is you. The antidote is you.
You heard that?
That's it. The antidote for heartbreak is you. So, Shelly, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for agreeing to have a very courageous conversation with me. Your wisdom is, I mean, it's just something that I've had the pleasure of being in the company of. And I thank you. I thank you for always being in my life, even when we weren't around each other physically
Mm-hmm.
and life took us in different paths, in different ways. We came back together like we never left. And I am so grateful to call you my friend, my sister.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel the feelings are mutual, Tasha. I thank you also very much, not only for having me here, but for also when I joke around saying helping me do God's work, but also for the transparency. As someone who can relate to the struggle of that. I don't think that it is us being authentic that is the hard part. It's us being authentic out loud that can be challenging. So I thank you for being a sister in that with me as well as in life. And also just in your own way doing the same thing, taking that jump. Because what you did is took that fear, whatever was holding you back, whatever stories were prevalent at that time, and you alchemized that energy. And I think that, my darling Clementine, is the difference. Okay, because I think I'm gonna say to our credit, we've not been people who have disenfranchised others in order to get anywhere, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
and we've also paid the divine price and cost of that by it being us, but we've also switched that around and alchemized that as well. So again, I appreciate the platform as well as the content and the vision. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
This was such a
welcome.
great conversation, and I am definitely going to have you back if you would kindly
Love to be
oblige me. But we have to come back because we have so much more to really dive into. And if we can bring clarity and hope and inspiration to people, that is the whole purpose of this. Like you said, we
absolutely.
never want to take from anyone else or to
Yes.
compromise anyone else. I think that's something big for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So thank
Yes.
you again. I love you so much.
I love you too.
All right.